Hey everybody, this is Eve West. Thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to promoting a book I wrote. It's called Follow. It's an ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com under the Kindles tab, I believe. And my book deals with a holistic view of spirituality, excuse me, looking at it in terms of, not just the metaphysical aspects of who we are as a human being, but also the reptilian brain, which is the physical aspect. Typically when we think of spirituality, we think of those intangible aspects of who we are, such as love and, creativity and intuition and so forth. But we also have a very physical side, which corresponds to the reptilian brain. And that's what you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And so I really focus on a lot of controversial topics, such as sex, money, religion. A lot of those things that we are told to kind of stay away from talking about, but those are also integral to who we are as human beings. And so I also focus on the various constructs of the matrix and how they work to divide the mind between the conscious ego and the unconscious mind, or some people refer to it in Christian theology as Adam and Eve, or in Egyptian mythology, Isis and Ra. But basically, it's the difference between God and the devil. And so I look at that, and I look at, media and entertainment, religion, the familial structure, education, and just the governmental structure itself, and how those work to divide the mind. I actually focus on the elite as well that created this false matrix reality. And, their issues, if you will, of course, they have issues since, they have us greet each other with hello, this is hell. But they're very parasitic beings and very, the elite are really, from my personal opinion, they're sick. They're definitely sick. And, it has nothing to do with us, but it has everything to do with them. And so when we look at a lot of the things that they have us do within the matrix, it really shows that there's something going on there. Like one of the things I like to bring up is, at birthdays we blow our candles out, on our birthday cake. And, we do things in the matrix and we don't really know why we do them. But really, blowing out your candles on your birthday cake symbolizes taking away your knowledge and selling your soul. Because every incarnation you sell your soul until your melanin is extracted out and you have no functioning third eye. That's why Hitler coveted an Aryan or master race, because you're governed by an entity outside of yourself. You have no more divinity. And so, every time you sell your soul, if you will, you are, your knowledge gets taken away. Every time we descend into this reality, we have no knowledge. And all of our knowledge comes from the information that's disseminated into our consciousness, into our minds from the matrix. And so you have no idea who you really are. And so until you start to wake up. And so when you start to wake up, oftentimes it's too late, if you will. But, when we blow our candles out on our birthday cake, we're celebrating our enslavement. We're celebrating taking away our knowledge. And this is very sick. This is very sick, and this is very sadistic. And so I've definitely got a lot of opposition, if you will, from talking about these particular subjects, because within this reality, we're not supposed to be smart here. If you're smart, then you're definitely definitely demonized and harassed. And so that pretty much brings us to what my videos have been about lately, which is gang stalking. And I've talked about how when you start to vibrate higher within the matrix, you become a target, you become a divergent, because a lot of the knowledge that you're acquiring conflicts with the programming you're programming. And I always use the example, for example, with religion. I was taught to be Christian. And so when you look at look at Christianity and looking at the Bible specifically, you see that the Bible is based a lot in Greek mythology, in Egyptian mythology. And also there's so many contradictions within the Bible that aid in splitting the mind, or psychological splits, as I talk about in another video. And so, when you see this, and you see that, you do your research, that Jesus would not have been named Jesus during the time that he supposedly walked the earth, and you were taught there's power in the name of Jesus, that becomes a problem for you. And so people who, around you, such as people at work, or, people in your family and friends, who believe in that there's power in the name of Jesus, and you share your research that he wouldn't have been named that, you start to stick out. and people point fingers at you like you're an other, and so you become a divergent, or you become Lucy or Lucifer. And so going back to the movie Lucy with Scarlett Johansson, she became a bearer of light. She became a bearer of knowledge. And so whenever you have knowledge, you're going to be pointed out and you're going to stick out, because the Matrix can only survive with glamour. It can only survive with lies and omission of the truth. And so the truth can't live here. It really can't, because the truth dismantles and destroys the entire system. So that's why, when you are vibrating higher and acquiring more knowledge, just like in the movie Lucy, when she, attained all of the maximum capacity of using her brain, she disappeared. And so really, to be honest with you, with the knowledge that you acquire, it's like you give up the body in a way. You give up physicality, and oftentimes you transition out and you transition into another dimension because of the knowledge that you've acquired. And so, Lucy means Lucifer, so she becomes Lucifer, and that's why Lucifer is demonized within the Matrix environment. Typically, Lucifer is a trigger for people. It's a trigger word. Whenever you hear Lucifer, it's like bad, and that's what I was taught. That's what I was programmed to believe. However, when you really start to study the occult, and you start to study, different, fields of spirituality, if you will, that you were not exposed to when you were being lied to and programmed, you realize that Lucy just means light bearer, just knowledge. And so they don't want you to have knowledge. And so they dumb you down a lot with various constructs of the Matrix, and puts you to sleep. So religion is designed to put you to sleep. And so this particular gang stalking incident I want to talk about is it occurred actually when I was at the library. I was at the library and I was trying to tape a video about gang stalking. So ironic. And I'm going to put that video too on there just to kind of show you the synchronicities, because synchronicities happen a lot to you. And to sync actually something means same or same time. And so whenever you start to wake up in the Matrix, things start to happen that are beyond coincidence. So if you're doing a tape about gang stalking and then you get gang stalk, then that's beyond coincidence, really. But things like this happen to you all the time. And so, when I was doing my video on gang stalking, the manager and another woman, I can't remember, I think she was just a typical librarian, but the manager, the branch manager at the library, came up with a librarian, and she said that I was disturbing her employees. And so really I was just out there. I'm going to upload this video so you can see. But, I was just out there, pretty much just, giving, doing my taping and so forth. There was nothing that I was doing that seemed abnormal. But one thing about the Matrix, whenever you're talking about occult information, people tend to demonize you. So if I was, doing a video about puppies, okay, and I was outside, doing a video and talking into my phone about puppies, that lady wouldn't have said anything, if you will, about me being out there. But because I was talking about occult information, then it was very frightening. It was very frightening for her. And so, because you become an easy target, if you will, because you can't hold on to the information that you have. You can't, the light that you have is too strong for you to actually put it underneath something. It reminds me of that song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine. And so everyone around you is designed and programmed to stomp out your light. But because it's so bright, it's very difficult, like I said, for you to contain it. And so really, it's really a part of my therapy as well to go online and to, just talk about these various things that I've, that I have discovered, if you will. It's very, very difficult to contain it. But anywho, I was just out there and I was doing my video and doing my taping. And when the branch manager and the librarian came out, they made the argument that that I was being too loud. This was the argument. The argument was I was being too loud, and that the chairs that they have designated outside the library were for their staff, although they allow some people to come out there to, do their work or what have you. But her story was that these chairs were purchased for her staff, or yeah, for the staff at the library. Excuse me, they were purchased for staff, and because of that, you know, they asked me if I would be respectful and not you know, being loud and doing my taping out there while they're trying to have lunch or what have you. And so, you know, I told the branch manager and the librarian that, you know, I was not being loud. I told her that I would not tape while they were out, you know, at lunch or what have you, but I made it known that there was no sign saying that there's a policy to, that it was for staff, or, you know, it's for staff, but you can sit out here and not tape, but if you're quiet and you don't tape or something like that. So I said, you know, there was nothing in writing to indicate what she was saying. And, you know, I told her that, you know, really in so many words, you know, I told her that she was, you know, basically, you know, asking me to do something that didn't really make a whole ton of sense to me. You know, I did tell her that, you know, I understand that you want to have a, you know, a nice, you know, quiet environment for your employees to have their lunch. I get that. But given what I've been doing, there's nothing that would have caused it to not be a nice, positive environment, or if I was infringing upon their, you know, infringing upon their environment or whatever, to take their breaks in a nice, peaceful place. I don't know. I just thought it was very strange. It was very odd. And when you look at the video, you will see in the video that, I mean, I was not, you know, yelling. I was not yelling, and I was not arguing. And I also made the case as well that, you know, say for example, if I worked at her establishment. So if I worked at her establishment and I was talking to another coworker at lunch, I would be talking to that coworker like at the same volume that I was talking into my phone. And oftentimes in my videos, I talk to you guys as if I'm talking to you and sitting down with you. It's like we're, you know, having a conversation kind of face to face type of thing. And so, you know, I don't have like a whole bunch of theatrics, and it's not like a whole bunch of distracting stuff. It's kind of like you're talking, like you're timing somebody on the phone, or you are, you know, like just talking. You know, like for example, there have been times when, you know, I'm FaceTiming my daughter or something like that, and, you know, no one comes to me and says, if I'm out in public, you know, you're FaceTiming with your daughter is distracting me. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like I'm not out somewhere or what have you, and, you know, people aren't like, oh, that FaceTime, you know, you're talking to someone and your phone is really getting to me. It wasn't that. It was the fact that I was talking about, you know, certain occult information, because in the videos, you know, I do talk about things that are somewhat uncomfortable for people, such as the five-pointed star. The five-pointed star is very integral to our matrix environment, and so the five-pointed star represents the pentagram, which is witchcraft. Even like, you know, in songs like Upgrade You by Beyonce and Jay-Z, Jay-Z talks about how the five-pointed star is connected to Saturn, and Saturn is allegorically depicted as Satan in the Bible. He talks about you're sure to see stars. You know, this is high level, not eye level. My courtesy of Audemars, an expensive watch. Saturn, or Satan, represents time and the material. That's why he mentions Audemars, which is an expensive watch. It symbolizes material and time. And so when you talk about, you know, occult significance of things, and, you know, I did mention something too about race as well, because going back to our matrix environment, you know, it's very similar in a way to Nazi Germany, because in Germany they actually valued an Aryan race, and so this is not something that other people don't talk about. You know, but it's more occult, if you will, and the significance of an Aryan race. An Aryan race is considered a master race, because when you have less melanin, you have less function of your pineal gland. You don't really have the ability of insight if you don't have as much melanin. And there's research to support this. This is not something I'm saying willy-nilly, what have you. You know, to be honest with you, They don't even really have enough research, right? This is funny because they don't have enough research to even tell you what the pineal gland does. Okay, so that's going to be the argument. We don't really know what the pineal gland is. It's just there. That's bogus. That's bogus. And that even, all the information that they have about our bodies, the pineal gland is the one thing that they don't know anything about. That should really raise questions right then and there as well. But from an occult standpoint, and you can research this about the occult, the pineal gland is connected to your melanin. It is connected to your melanin. Because it's connected to your melanin and your pineal gland gives you insight, it makes sense that the less melanin that you have, the less you are able to see past the constructs of the matrix that uphold the illusions of the matrix. And so this is where people get the whole cliche of dumb blonde. You never ask yourself that. You don't ask questions in the demiurge. You don't ask questions in the matrix. But why do they call people dumb blondes? I understand that, people watching my videos are, very reptilian brain centered. And that, you're going to see things strictly from the superficial. I understand some people are going to be like that. But just think to yourself, why are people called dumb blondes? Now, I'm not saying that people who are blonde are dumb, because there are many people who are blonde that are lawyers and doctors, and they have very successful businesses and things like that, and they function very well within the matrix environment. But I'm not talking about knowledge at the physical atomic level. I'm talking about a knowledge that is beyond this world, that is beyond the physical. And so whenever you're trying to attain knowledge beyond the physical, it is very difficult to do that without the sufficient melanin that is connected to your pineal gland. And so that's why people call blondes dumb blondes. It's not that they're dumb in terms of the standards of our world, but when you go to another world, because many people acknowledge there's a world beyond this one, melanin is very important. Melanin is connected to your soul, or your pineal gland, which is the divine aspect of you, is connected to your soul. That's why black people are often considered soul brothers and soul sisters. Think to yourself, why is that? Why is black people's food considered soul food? Why are black people called soul brothers and soul sisters? Okay, and so one of the reasons, one of the rationales behind this is because your melanin is connected to your soul. Look at the spectrum of hues. Look at races and look at the spectrum of hues. When it comes to black people, you have a wider spectrum than any other race. Ask yourself, why is that? Why is it when it comes to black people that you can be super duper dark or super duper light like myself? But then when you get to your more Asian race and your Caucasian races, that the hue falls relatively in line. Ask yourself, from an occult standpoint, if you have somewhat of a, open third eye, don't you think that that's a little odd? That within the black demographic you have such a wide spectrum, but then when you get into your other races, the spectrum relatively falls in line together, and there's not much discrepancy between the spectrum of hues? Maybe it has something to do with reincarnation and selling your soul. So when you reincarnate, you get less and less and less melanin. Maybe. I don't know. So, these are just questions, if you will, that I pose to people because, I don't want anybody to get offended, if you will, by my comments. But really, to be honest with you, and addressing a lot of the occult rationales behind things, it gets beyond this world, and we're taught just like everybody else. I'm an ego too. I'm still in a body, and so I feel just like other people do. We all bleed red, and from an egoic standpoint, we all do the same stuff. We all celebrate the same holidays, and we go to we shop at the same establishments, and we what else? We drive the same types of cars. And when I did drive, right, before my car got totaled, the Dodge Journey that I, drove, other, people, it didn't matter whether your gender or demographics, drove that car. um, teachers, like I was a teacher. And so there are teachers of different races, if you will. I mean, it really fundamentally at the atomic level really doesn't matter. Race does not matter. But when you're looking at it and you're looking at the whys and the how, because this atomic level is all about the what. You're white, you're black, you're rich, you're poor, whatever. But when you start to reach why and how that came to be, this is a higher taxonomy of knowledge. So you get from the hell realm, that's why we say hello, this is hell, and then you go into the higher realms. And when you see in the higher realms the justifications or the reasons for these things, it makes you sick, actually. It makes you sick in terms of why this world functions the way that it does. And like I mentioned in some other videos, it's like in The Giver with Jonas. In The Giver, that movie, The Giver, Jonas represents the Christ. He is not just psychological or psycho, right, like the other people in his community, where they just function by their mind, but he also is earthly. And so Christ is earthly and psychological, or earthly and spiritual. And so because he actually realizes his divinity, Jonas does, and he doesn't take the injections anymore that other people do to take away their emotional bodies. And he starts to not fit in. And so when not fitting in, he's demonized because he really sees past the construct. When they have releases, they call them releases, but he realizes that a release is just a murder. They murder people who do not fit into their matrix society. The only way that he was able to see this is by actually discovering his divinity. He has now become God. He has now become divine. And so when he sees this and he realizes where he really is, he is demonized. And so this is what happens to us. This is what happens to us when we actually get the occult meaning behind things. And so, race in terms of, we all bleed red and stuff like that gets into, this is connected to your melanin. Your melanin is connected to your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is connected to your insight. And in order to have insight, you have to have soul. If you don't have soul, you're going to be stuck here. And if you don't have enough soul, then you're going to be stuck. And everybody has melanin, regardless of what race you are. I'm not saying that black people are the only race that has melanin, but black people have more melanin than any other racial demographic. And so because of that, the third eye of black people is debased more than anyone. In terms of, especially with media and entertainment, a lot of the music that black people listen to are such as hip hop, because that's the stereotype. We have white rappers, I understand, but and everyone listens to hip hop. However, hip hop music is associated a lot with black people. Okay, even Eminem says this. And so because of that, the divinity is taken away from that particular demographic. And so we are forced to focus on the divine instead of the divinity that creates the divine. And so this is a slave mentality. And so in the music, it has you focus on money and cars and sex and all of those physical aspects, but it does not honor the divinity that makes them. And so to debase the third eye, they have us, all demographics, but especially within the black community, they have us focus on the divine rather than the divinity. Because once you discover your divinity, then you have power, and you're not a slave anymore. You know what I mean? So we have to have slaves here. In order for the people who actually created this disgusting system, they have to have slaves. And so a slave is slow basically. And so most people here, regardless of what race you are or what gender, everyone is slow. Everyone is really slow, except for the Christ. Now, when you've reached Christ consciousness, then you're smarter. But if you haven't reached Christ consciousness, you are slow. You are really just, worried about mundane things, like talking about Donald Trump and, looking at the BET Awards and, going to see the latest movie and, doing all these different mundane things. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with those things. In fact, there's nothing wrong with them. But there is something wrong when you're doing these things and you're not aware of why you're doing them, or you don't really have an understanding of these things. And how they insidiously affect your consciousness when you really pull back the layers and think about them. And so, really lately I've definitely had to handle things with kid gloves because, with the knowledge that you have, people get easily offended, especially when it comes down to religion. For example, although I can break, Christianity or being Christian down and looking at the etymology of that word, when you look at the suffix Christian, the IAN means variant or part of. That's what it means in terms of that particular suffix or word stem. And so what does that mean when you see the word Christian? Christian means a variant of Christ or a part of Christ. It does not represent Christ. It does not represent holiness. And when you look at the etymology of the word, now some people will be offended and they will say, oh, so you're saying that my religion is unholy. Now, I respect anyone's religion. I was raised Christian, and so, I'm not disrespecting, because Christianity is a part of who my ego, who I was groomed to be. But now that I'm reaching my divinity and looking and seeing that Christianity means a part of Christ, a part of something is not holy. A part of something, a variant of something, means a part of it. It does not mean holy. So yes, in and of itself, when you look at that from an objective standpoint, it means unholy. Because in Christianity, you focus on the spiritual aspect of yourself as opposed to the earthly. And so you're not just spiritual, you're also earthly. And so going back to that movie, The Giver, Jonas represents the Christ because he is spiritual and earthly, whereas the people in his environment are psychos. They're psychological. They are not earthly. They do not have their earthly sacral, or what they call in the New Age their kundalini or what have you. Now, in watching this, you may be upset about this, or you may not, be accepting. I don't really, expect everyone to accept my views. That's fine. I welcome all perspectives because all perspectives are a part of the collective unconscious mind. But when I'm saying things that may not feel good to you about various constructs of the matrix, such as religion, that's still an opinion. And also, too, when you talk about religion and so forth, it's not something that's innate to you. We're not born Christian. We're not born Muslim, and we're not born Jewish. And so, because that's something that was given to you when you descended into this world, it is not innate to who you are. And so I promise you, from an occult standpoint, you're not going to die Jewish or Christian or Buddhist or whatever the case is, because you don't even know anything about those things until you descended into this reality. Everything was given to you. I mean, really, to be honest with you, even your race, to be honest. I mean, race is an atomic thing. Once I give up this body, I'm not going to be female, and I'm not even going to be black. So, I mean, this has to do with the body. Being black has to do with the body. Being female, right? My genitalia has to do with the body. My religion has to do with the body. Everything about this particular world is about the physical. It is not something that is innate to really who I am. And so, since it's not something that's innate to who you are, really essentially, fundamentally, then these things should be able to be discussed, and we should be able to share our opinions about these particular things without feeling like we can't address them. We can't talk about the occult significance, if you will, of them. Now, at the physical level, there's nothing that I can do about being black. At the physical level, there's nothing I can do about being a female. But this is still not innate to really fundamentally who I am when I shed my concepts of the matrix. And when I go to sleep at night, I don't identify with being a man or a woman or black or white or rich or poor or whatever. I don't identify with any concepts, and neither do you. When you go to sleep at night, you're no one. You don't have any children. You're not a spouse. You're not a sister. You're not a mother. You're nothing. You are nothing. And so you came from nothing, and you will go back to nothing. And so, really until you reach a higher taxonomy of knowledge, you really don't get the significance of these things. And so, when people are waking up in the matrix and you're really talking about these things, they don't feel good to you as an ego. And I really totally understand that. Because, when I was asleep, if someone was like, I don't know, if someone said Christianity, really that word means that, a variant or part of Christ, which means it's unholy, then I probably would say, oh, how dare you? Jesus died for my sins and I love Jesus and what have you. And I, don't you talk about Jesus, WWJD. What would Jesus do? But when you start to find out the truth of, Jesus just represents something from an occult standpoint, it's like, okay, let's talk about this. Think about your entertainers, because the people who created this world, they laugh at you. They laugh at you for your beliefs because they know that they made up the stuff. So that's why they have Kanye West say, refer to himself as Jesus. Come on now. Kanye West, he's not respecting Jesus. He's not saying, oh my gosh, I love Jesus. He says, you know what, I'm Jesus. Or Jay-Z is saying, I'm Hove, right? What have you. They're calling themselves God because they know that they are God. And that these things just represent something from the occult. They know that the regular sheeple, regular reptilian brain people are believing in these things. That these things are outside of who they are when they are not. So from the superficial level, these elites, I don't consider entertainers elites, but these people who have more bank than we do from the superficial level, who are actually tied to the elites, the ones who really run this hellhole, they know that this is just something for the sheeple. You've just been told this stuff. They already know that the letter J didn't exist during the time that Jesus would have walked the earth. And now that, people are waking up and we're sharing this information, then you want to demonize them and you want to feel, I guess what the word is, offended. You want to feel offended, but you only feel offended because it destroys your ego. Because an ego feels offended when you mention something about my race. The ego feels offended when you mention something about my gender. The ego feels offended when you mention something about my religion. The ego feels offended about anything. You're offended if you mention something about my hair. I'm offended if you mention something about my clothes. I feel offended if you mention something about my mama or my daddy or whomever. That's something very much an ego would be upset about. But when you are ascending to another level, you really don't care too much about stuff. I mean, certain things really just don't bother you. Like there's this guy that comments on my videos. He's actually crazy. But he's funny because he will say some of the most just off the wall things. And I mentioned to him in the comment section, he was like, I'm so sorry, for mentioning all these crazy comments. But I told him that I really don't take them seriously. I don't take him seriously. I said, I'm just happy that you commented on my channel. You could have said, you know what, you're a freaking lunatic and I can't stand you, whatever. I'd be like, oh, thanks for the comment. But why do you think I'm a lunatic? And why can't you not stand me? You know, like, let's reach a higher taxonomy of knowledge. Let's talk about this, you know, because I'm all about sharing and talking and really, you know, just starting a conversation with people about whatever they want. I feel like you should be able to be who you want to be. You know, you shouldn't have to hide behind anything. You know, you should be able to say what you want to say to me and not feel like you have to keep it inside, because the person that we keep inside behind our ego, we have to meet that person at the end of our incarnation. The person that you're hiding. The person that you're hiding. And so, and you know, on the internet, people just feel more at liberty just to be themselves because they can hide behind an alias. But you should be able to be yourself regardless of what. You shouldn't have to hide behind an alias. You should be able to actually sit in front of me in my face and tell me exactly what you think and what you feel about me, as opposed to hiding it and conforming to society, and to actually you know, just be afraid of what's going to happen to you if you tell me what you think about me. And then be blamed for that. You know, then be blamed for it. And so, you know, I will not be silent. I will not be silent about the occult information that I know about religion, about race, about sex, you know, and so forth. These are just things that we have to talk about. And in one of my videos, I'm going to shed some research that validates a lot of the things that I say, you know, because, you know, I feel that at the atomic level, you know, you can't do anything about being black at the atomic level. Like, if you tell me, you know, black people are bad or what have you, you shouldn't be black, I'm going to say to you, well, you know, I understand that that's how you feel. And I, you know, just like how I honor that, you know, I don't really care about race. I honor that you care about race, and you know, you don't like this particular demographic of people. That's how you feel. Okay, well, I can accept that and move on. Other people can't, but I can. I can accept anything that people feel about anything at the atomic level. However, there's nothing that I can do about that. I can't change your judgments. I can't change your opinion. I can't change this. I can't change my race for you. I can't change my gender. And so when we have to where people, you know, you have to cover up, you know, the fact that cover your body up. You know, why is it that we have to cover up a part of ourselves that we cannot change at the atomic level? You know, think to yourself, if you're a woman and you can't change the fact that you're a woman, why do you have to cover up the fact that you're a woman? I mean, weren't you, you know, born into the world as a woman? So why do I have to cover that up? You know, I mean, I can't change being a woman. I can't, like, you know, grow a penis or something like that. You know what I mean? I just can't. Or, you know, I can't, you know, change being black, at least not and look normal. You know, I mean, I could bleach my skin, right? but you know, I can't change being black. So, you know, why am I being persecuted for that? Something that I cannot change at the atomic level. That sounds really crazy. But, you know, and people, you know, advocate that in different religions, if you will. They advocate women, you know, being a certain way. And so, you know, we have to ask ourselves these questions. Why is it that, you know, in society, we are shunned for things that are not even shunned, but asked to cover and conceal? Let me say that. Why are we asked to cover and conceal aspects of ourselves that we cannot change? Like, there's a story that was put in the BBC and also many different websites about a woman that got beaten because of her burqa. Her burqa, she wasn't wearing her burqa properly. I believe it's called the burqa, but maybe it's called something else, but it was a covering. And so she wasn't wearing it properly. She got beaten for that. Why is that? What is that really saying? You know, let me ask this question. What is that really saying about, how does that make me feel as a woman, that, you know, there's a part of me that I cannot change, that I will be beaten for showing? And that's what I want people to answer on my channel. You know, if you, you know, if you want to censor, right, you want to censor that, then answer these questions. Answer this question for me. I would really like to know that there's something about me that I cannot change at the atomic level, but I am made to conceal it. And not only that, if I don't wear what I was concealing this part about me that I cannot change, and I'm not wearing it properly, I'm beaten for something that I cannot change at the atomic level. Why is that? Why is that condoned? Why is that considered to be right? I would like these questions. I would like to have a dialogue about these particular questions. And these are questions that you start to really ask yourself and to ask other people as you're waking up in the matrix. As a Lucy, as a Luciferian, as Lucifer, as a bearer of light. And so when you are a light bearer and you have knowledge, the people around you do not feel comfortable answering these questions. People are, talk about, different things. Like my friend, you know who you are, I'm just like, digging into you, what have you. But, and, I like to have those funny, silly, conversations or what have you. I mean, I'm like that still. I'm still in a body, but, I'm still an ego. But what about the real nitty gritty? What are you afraid of? It's all about attacking, light bearers or truthers as they call us or what have you. But, I want to actually turn the tables around to you. I want to know what you think. Those people who want to stay away, if you will, from the really good questions and really just kind of look at, different topics that involve, things that we cannot change at the atomic level, and why, regardless of what construct they fall under, why is that okay? Why is it okay to be beaten? Why is it okay for you to make me cover up something that I really just I don't know, it's something that's a part of me at this physical level? Why? That's all I want to know. I don't want to know what. I want to know why. And so it is the whys that gets us excommunicated from the matrix. It's the why that that leaves us beaten and broken, and that's sad. I think it's very sad. And the people that impose these things upon us, you shouldn't have a gavel, but you should have a mirror. I want the makers of this world to have a mirror. Instead of a gavel. Only someone with a gavel is a judger. And if you're a judger, then you are a reptilian, monkey-minded person. And when I say monkey-minded, meaning an animal, has nothing to do with race. You're an animal. You are only functioning by what you can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. But let's go beyond that. Let's go beyond the what. Let's look at the higher taxonomy of knowledge. Why? Why? This is very disheartening to really find out this information. So at this particular establishment, the library, I was just sitting, talking into my phone about, my videos and stuff like that. And I was told that I was being too loud, and I'm sure I was, accused of being too loud. And you can make the assessment too. You can say to yourself, oh, she was being loud. But, I really doubt seriously that you will say that I was being loud. It wasn't that I was being loud. It was the fact that I was talking about something that felt uncomfortable to an ego. And because I rubbed you the wrong way and said something that you did not like and infringed upon something that you identified with as an ego, then you got upset. And really, to be honest with you, that has nothing to do with me, because the information that I talk about on my channel is occult information. And I don't say that nowhere on my channel do I say that I hate a particular religion, that I hate a particular demographic of people, that I say that, I hate religious practices and things like that. In no way do I say that, but I do raise the question of, hey, why do we do these things? Why should I have to cover up who I am? Why do we have these practices? Why do we blow our candles out in our birthday cake? Why is the 5-pointed star so integral to who we are? And so these questions are very difficult for egos, if you will, to explore in the matrix. So I'm just going to play for you, basically what happened to me at the library while I was doing my taping. Your staff comes, this is designed for your staff to come out here to have their breaks. And so when I told you, I said, well, there's no sign to suggest that. And then you said you don't have any problem with me being out here. It's just that you want your staff to have a very nice, peaceful environment when they have their break. And so I really, can empathize with that, because oftentimes I'm targeted, if you will, when I'm doing my work and so forth, and people are just like bothering me, what have you. But you said that it's the constant talking because it's during my taping that's an issue, correct? Okay, and so what is it? So, for example, if you were, like, if you had, two co-workers that came out here to eat, they would be talking to one another.
We usually just come out alone. Yeah. I think maybe once in a while there'll be like a staff meeting out here where that's a purposeful, like we're on work time, we're talking because it's work.
Okay.
But usually when we're taking our breaks, we're alone. Right. We're trying to have downtime because we work with the public all day.
Okay, so her premise of the argument right there was that, when they come out there, the people at the library, when they come out there to take their breaks or what have you, that they're just, coming out there alone. They're coming out there alone so they could have some downtime because, I've worked with the public, and in working with the public, it can be very exhausting. It can be very exhausting. I worked in public schools for over 13 years, almost 14 years. And, I barely had enough time to eat my food. There are some times I did not even eat because I had to monitor kids. I had to, use the bathroom. I had to hold myself so I could use the bathroom during the time that I could eat. So I had to choose between using the bathroom or eating. So that's why I'm retired, and I'm going to stay retired. But anywho, the thing is that when you, I understood, I could empathize when you just really want a moment, if you will, by yourself when it's quiet. But at the same time, I was out there just, talking into my phone as if I was having FaceTime with someone or what have you. In a way, I kind of consider YouTube to be FaceTime. And so I didn't really think that it warranted, the idea of, your volume is just too loud and people can't have a peaceful time out here because, you're talking into your phone. It's kind of like, I'm trying to think other scenarios where you're out in public places and, like, for example, if you are, I don't know, like if you're at the car place, oftentimes you're at the car place and there's a television on, so they have TVs on for you to watch or what have you, but some people are just having independent conversations. And so, if someone has someone's watching the television at the car repair place, but, someone's having a conversation that's next to you, then, it's like, are you going to tell the person you have to turn that TV off? You have to turn that TV off because I'm having a conversation, so it's kind of like, it's a public place. Anything kind of goes, if you will. And so she tried to make the argument too at one point. She was talking to me and she was like, well, what if we were really loud when you were trying to do your taping? And I said, well, if that's the case, then I would just shut down my taping and I would do it during a time where, it was quieter. Or what have you. It's not a big deal to me. It's not a big deal. It's kind of like, first come, first serve type thing. If I'm at the car place and I'm watching television and then you come up and you start to talk, I'm not going to tell you, keep it down because I'm trying to look at the television. I know that we're all here for the same purpose, which is to get our car fixed. And so the purpose of being in this environment is not to watch the television, if you will. And so, that's a luxury, so to speak, but it's not something that's necessarily needed. And since it's something that's not necessarily needed, I'm not going to tell you to shut your mouth unless now the television has some type of, I don't know, warning about, I don't know, whatever is happening in the Matrix, like if there's like a flash flood or something. Then if you're having a conversation, I would say, excuse me, do you mind keeping it down? Because I really want to, I'm traveling on the other side of town, or I'm traveling to, Atlanta, whatever, after I get my car repaired, and I just saw on the news that, there's a flash flood warning, or there's some type of weather thing. Do you mind if I listen to this really quickly, or what have you? But if it's not an extenuating circumstance like that, who am I to say, you know what, you need to shut your mouth. You need to shut your mouth because I can't hear the television or whatever. So to me doing my taping is equated to like if someone were watching television. It's constant talking, for an extended period of time. It's a public place. Really, these restrictions that are placed upon me are really, from my point of view, it's psycho. like it is. Like if I were to be at a car repair place and I'm watching the television and people are having a conversation, I said, you know what? I'm watching this television, and if you can't be quiet, I'm asking you to leave here. People would probably look at me like something is wrong with me. They would say, excuse me, ma'am, everyone is here getting their stuff together, what have you, and if you can't hear the TV, then that's just too bad. You need to go and watch your own television, or you need to go ahead and get some headphones and pull your television on your phone, or what have you, because I have every right to be here just like everyone else who does. I have every right. What you're saying is really crazy. So let's continue. Oh, I see what you're saying, work with the public. Yeah, you do need that downtime, because I taught school for over 13 years, and so in teaching school for over 13 years, you definitely don't get any, yeah, exactly, and coworkers and stuff like that. Oh, have you taught school?
Well, I was in the library in the school district, so I know.
Oh, okay.
That town.
Yeah, definitely. I totally empathize with that. It's just that, this is a good place for me to do my tapings and stuff like that. And so, like I said, I was not aware at all, because it has no sign saying that this is, strictly for staff.
We don't want to restrict staff. I mean, people do come and use it from time to time, and when we're not out here, I think we're really happy for you to make the recordings or whatever. It's just when we are out here and someone's trying to read or...
Okay. So you're saying that, if someone comes out, then that would be my cue to leave.
Or just not the recording out loud.
Or not the recording out loud, because if two people are talking or what have you at lunch or something, it's different. Although you typically don't do that. But if I'm just like talking into my phone, what if I was like just talking to someone on the phone? Like, would that be an issue?
I guess if it were like an...
Okay, so I really tried to make the point that me talking into my phone is like talking on my phone, or talking to a coworker, like about my research or something like that. It's not like, I was like yelling, or even came to the coworker or the person who was out there and started arguing about something. I don't know. It's just very weird. Like to me, this whole scenario like has no justification whatsoever in terms of what she was saying. Because that's another thing, when I'm gang stalked, I oftentimes ask questions, because you become super duper smart. And I'm not saying that as an ego. I can't claim responsibility for my smartness. I like to be smart, right? But in my next incarnation, I'm supposed to be really dumb. So I can't claim responsibility for smart. But because I'm supposed to be done with my next one. But anywho, in this one I'm smart, and so I'm playing that smart role, because I was conditioned to be that. You start to ask questions. Your pineal gland is open, so you're like, okay, well, what if I was talking to someone? What if I was talking to a coworker? Would that still be considered loud? I'm sorry, but a lot of this is quite laughable. I really don't know what to make of it. So I have some more footage, if you will. maybe that, I don't know, maybe that one didn't take everything. That's odd. Let's see.
And that's what the purpose of this area is, and I think that we're kind enough to share it with you.
Okay.
I feel like we're doing a very kind thing by saying, you're welcome to be here. We're not saying you need to go, but like, why wouldn't you want to be quiet if we want you to be quiet while we're taking our breaks? Because that seems respectful, like the respectful thing to do in that situation.
To be quiet.
To be quiet while we come out and take breaks. So I guess I was coming out and asking nicely if you would be willing to do that.
I'll be willing to stop my taping if that's what you mean, in terms of when someone comes out here to have their lunch. That's fine, but I don't acknowledge that I've been loud or that I would say the volume of my voice is above what I would use if I was, say, talking to a coworker. Like I said, if I was, if I worked at your establishment, or say if I was on the phone. And so I know that you said, most of your coworkers don't talk to each other, during lunch. I guess you have to take it at a certain time or something. And so because you have to take your lunch at a certain time, then you may not have an opportunity to really eat with someone. But if you did have an opportunity to eat with someone, I'm not yelling or saying, this, that, and the other. Because I think I did notice someone was over there and she was reading a book. And so, like you said, I can see your rationale for someone's reading a book, you need to be quiet, type of thing. But like you said, in the library, you can talk, and so people are reading in the library. So that kind of negates that rationale right there, you know. But, I definitely understand where you're coming from, and I will stop the taping when you guys come out here. Because, like you said, this is something that you're used to doing, and it's normally you come out here for your breaks and stuff like that, and you want a quiet place. Absolutely. I definitely just want to make sure that I get what your policy is. And also, like I said, I apologize, but I did not know that this was a place where you, that this was for your staff to eat, and that you eat by yourself, and that you want it quiet. And, this was a no taping, a no taping zone. But at no time was I loud or anything.
No, when we're not out here, it's fine to tape or talk or whatever.
Well, what times are you out here? Like, what times are you?
It varies. It could be any time between 10 and 5. Usually no one's taking a break after 5.
Between 10 and 5.
Occasionally they do, but usually between 10 and 5.
Okay. Okay, between 10 and 5.
Work different shifts. And, sometimes they're short breaks, sometimes they're longer breaks, but it's scattered in that time.
Oh, okay, got you. So between 10 and 5, I'll know that that particular window of time may not be the best time to come out here and tape because someone might be coming out to have their lunch or something.
It is possible.
Okay. Okay.
But we don't, at this point, I don't want to restrict it. I don't want to put signs up that say staff only, because I don't feel like, it's nice that people can use it when we're not using it. And even when someone does come out here, as long as it's quiet. I think that's the only thing that we're really hoping for is quiet breaks.
Yeah, because, like you said, if you don't have a sign out here, then it makes it out like, that definitely was not something. Like you said, you don't mind people coming out here.
Right.
But if you were to put a staff only and what have you, it would really look a little different, after you've spoken to me about, being out here, what have you, and doing my taping, and then saying, oh, it's staff only. Because that would make it look like, oh, that's targeted towards you personally. You guys seem like wonderful people, and really nice and wholesome, so because of that, you would never try to, like, target me or anything like that and say, oh, we're putting this sign out here because you're out here,
Yeah, you're not the only person that comes and sits here. Other people use it too.
They use it too. Okay. Yeah.
We're hoping not to restrict it. That's why I was telling you about the quiet issue so that we can work with you and we won't have to put up any signs.
Yeah, and restriction, is definitely something, like I said, I've been really, witnessing, if you will, in terms of, being in, just regular, just public places, in an environment and so forth. And so I definitely want to, notate whatever what the restrictions are, what the policies are, and so forth, just to make sure that I'm very cognizant of them, Yeah, thanks so much. All right, it was nice talking to you guys.
Okay, and so, and looking at this or what have you, she starts talking about, we don't want to restrict this, and we don't want to have to put a sign out here. And so I really wanted to indicate to her that if you did put a sign out there, and that if you did restrict it, it would clearly be targeted towards me. Because like she said, other people come out there, and so the only reason would be, oh, this person is out there talking into her phone or taping on her phone. And since she's taping on her phone, we're going to restrict this area because of the fact that people are taking breaks and people don't want to see her talking into her phone or taping on her phone or hear her taping on her phone or talking on her phone or what have you. And so clearly, whenever you're vibrating higher within the matrix, you are, like I said, you're targeted. And, especially with a lot of the information that you're focusing on, the information is occult. And so it does not feel really good to an ego. And so when someone hears you talking about the occult meaning behind sex, or the occult meaning behind race, or the occult meaning behind, religions and things like that, against their programming, then you become a divergent. You start to vibrate differently. And, people put policies in place to justify your mistreatment. Like I said, the policy is not in place at this point in terms of you can't be out there. If you will. This is strictly for staff, but they will put policies in place to demonize you. And so that's one thing I like to highlight when it comes to gang stalking. A lot of things I was able to do within the matrix environment used to be easy. Like when I went to the Bath and Body Works and I was trying to switch out a lotion because I didn't, it was a gift someone bought me. I really didn't want that fragrance for a body wash. And, I was like, I already have enough lotion, so I'll just get a body wash as long as it's an even exchange. It shouldn't be a big deal. And the person was like, you have to get a lotion. And it's like, well, no, I don't really want a lotion. I just want this body wash. It's the same price as the even exchange. And she's like, well, you have to exchange a lotion for a lotion, not a lotion for a body wash. That's our policy. It's like, excuse me? That was never, something that you did before. I was able to always switch things out. It didn't have to be something for another particular something. But they always put a policy. It's always something new. There's our new sign, for you, if you will. Because everything that's doing to really treat you unfairly and to impose a mistreatment upon you, there's always a policy, there's always a new law, there's always a new rule, there's always a new regulation to justify us disenfranchising you. So thanks guys for watching this video, and I will see you in my next.